Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am, as usual, Bastion, aka 07716, and today our special guest is none other than one-third of the rogues in the house, Mr. Matt John, author, game design specialist, and in general, the first Kanakastani that I've had on this particular conversation.
Hey.
Welcome aboard, good sir.
How's it going? Happy to be here.
Oh, it is going very good. How is the east coast of Canada today?
It's pretty good. Windy, but it was a good Sunday. It's not as frigid in northern here as people seem to think in the southern reaches, you know?
Yeah. Well, in our case, it's been raining for the last all weekend, basically. It's just been rain.
Yeah.
So,
are you in Quebec?
I am in Quebec.
Yeah, you do get some pretty frigid, brutal winters, I believe.
Oof. Well, to put it another way, the national anthem of my province consists of several repetitions of "Calice de tabarnak, calice de vierge," repeated in chorus.
Yeah.
So yes, it's goddamn brutal.
Yeah, I've been up to Montreal in the winter for concerts and stuff, and it's like, whoo.
Oh yeah, well, Montreal's got it easy. I'm in Quebec City proper, and that's even farther north.
Yeah, I've never actually been up to Quebec City for wintertime, but I've always wanted to go because I hear there's some cool stuff going on.
It's pretty nice. They've got, the winter market kind of thing going. They got Carnival and stuff like that. It's pretty nice. Yeah. Plus, historic city. So always good stuff there.
I love Quebec City. It's my favorite city in Canada I visited for sure.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if it worked for Lovecraft, it worked for everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're off to a flying start. So, as we said, you are one-third of the Rogues in the House podcast. So, what can you tell me about that? That is a very impressive little piece on the resume right there.
Is it? I mean,
more than me. I don't have a podcast technically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, it's we've been at it for a couple of years, and we're really digging it. It is we have as much fun recording it as it sounds like we do.
I imagine.
Yeah. So, no, it's been great. And one-third of it, it's kind of weird now because we've sort of got 4 main hosts, but we bring people on a lot and do a lot with guests. So I don't know how many rogues are going to end up being in that house, but it's going to be full.
Yeah. Well, rogues do tend to congregate. Let's face facts.
They do. Yes. Yeah. They use thieves' cant, as it were.
If the Fritz Library stores have taught us anything, is that you get a certain quantity of rogues in the same area. Eventually they start, gathering all of them together.
That's right.
We should probably show off the fact that let's on the same t-shirt.
So I noticed, that Bastion here on one of his other videos had this exact same Fire and Ice Frazetta Girls shirt that I have.
And of course, naturally.
Yeah, like a couple of school gals, I called them. I was like, we should coordinate.
Well,
and he was like, yeah.
But regardless, whether it comes to t-shirts, schoolgirl outfits, or just, general weapons loadouts, you need to coordinate before you come in there. Otherwise, you come in with the same goddamn thing, and it's just a mess.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, it's important to show the cred. I've always done this with like things I've been into, you wear the t-shirt, see someone in public, you give the nod, they get it. Metal shirts are like that sometimes.
Metal shirts are like that. Somebody with the actual metal vest with the patches on it and everything, that person definitely is like, I was there, man.
I've bumped up against enough of those in the mosh pit over the years.
It's always also nice to meet a fellow metalhead.
Yeah, of course. I mean, So, Rogues is going well, and we're going to keep going, looking to, expand always, but mostly because I have this weird obsession where I want to get all the Sword and Sorcery peeps under the same roofs, as it were.
Yeah, get them talking amongst each other to a certain
degree. Don't be divided, right? Try and get it centralized. So I don't know. It just feels like some tiny side quest I'm helping to perform here.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to like genre stuff in general, you're always going to have a little bit that tendency of like herding cats to a certain degree because because as much as we like to think that we all like the same things, really what it is like a congregation of Venn diagrams all bumping into each other and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Like I remember, like on the recent episode, you were doing a Red Sonja centric episode, and there's
Yeah.
like the mention, like why is it some people are really really obsessed with keeping Conan pure and in the Hyborian age and be real purists about that, and then like with Red Sonja, yes, enter the 20th century, who cares and stuff like that, or get and to me it's like, well, you've got the people who are really big fans of Conan, the people who got really big fans of Red Sonja who don't want those things to happen, and then you got the small amount in between that
Yeah.
do care about that, but then you have also the ones that don't give a damn up here and will be fine with anything.
Yeah,
and
and
like
then you've
trying
got
to get all these people to
Howard
agree.
purists, at the bottom, who are, not going to do any Red Sonja with the J at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I really, one thing I would stress on the podcast is that it is really for all comers. Like if you like Masters of the Universe, or you like Red Sonja, or you like Jerial of Jory, or whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. We want you to listen. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. It's like, it's such a niche fandom, right? Because it really is.
Yeah.
I'm finding it. Not only is it, you have to have so many people who are into that genre, but they have to be on the different social media. For podcasts, they have to be people who would listen to a podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in certain cases we'll, reach a limit, and that's fine.
Yeah. It's like at a certain level, we all want that mainstream success. We all want to be, have the next Conan movie to be like a massive blockbuster success, and bring back the genre to its 60s or 80s glory and stuff like that. But that comes with side effects too, and
of course,
you have to be prepared for those trade-offs to a certain degree. Like,
yeah, and you kind of have to. I feel like I'm at the age now too where I wouldn't be all upset if something I loved became popular and changed. Like when I was younger, that would really bother me. I think if like, I was in there before it was cool, kind of thing. But as long as something like that came along and it did a good job, even if it's a different job, if it's a quality piece, like the original '82 film. It's totally different, but it's also a masterpiece. Yeah, it is very cool.
Yeah.
Little Bran McMorn in there. And
it's very Howardian. It's not exactly the book Conan, but it is extremely Howardian in its,
there's aspects of it, like the idea of, I think at its core, the idea of how powerful one's will can be is a part of it. And then there's all kinds of little bits and bobs that make it Howard-like. Like you got a giant snake in there. You didn't get that in 2011.
Damn right.
2011, you got a bunch of orcs with the serial numbers filed off.
I did kind of like the sand people thing the
parkour sand mummies.
Yeah, those are kind of cool. They move like they're out something out of a bad remake of the Matrix. Which,
it was like some late Matrix ripoffs. It was like curious at the time.
But the idea of having an evil witch just grab a handful of sand, blow it, and have a bunch of things come out of the ground, like at the end of Jason and the Argonauts, that works for me.
Yeah, and there's tons of cool. Implemented. There's a lot of cool stuff in that movie. It just didn't gel for me.
Yeah, I mean, we can agree that Jason Momoa was good as the Conan.
Yeah, I think he was. He had charisma. He had the right physical aspect.
He had the right attitude.
Yeah, he did. And I think with if he had a stronger director and someone else who was like in a better script, I think a lot more of that stuff would have come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully for the Netflix series.
Yeah. Although, exactly.
Then again, I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. There's been very little news about that. I mean, we've heard more from the Amazon Lord of the Rings series, and that stuff doesn't sound particularly promising to.
Yeah, I mean, and Lord of the Rings is all shot, right? Like, there's not even been no one's been assigned to Conan yet.
Yeah, so, there was a point early on where Stephen DeKnight was going to be the showrunner on a Conan series for Netflix.
That would have been wicked.
As a guy who watched Spartacus, all 4 seasons of it back when I was in the army, oh dear sweet mother of Crom, that would have been.
Yeah, and I know he digs the character a lot. He actually wrote one of the comics for the giant-sized Conan.
Oh yeah.
It came out, I don't know, several months ago.
Yeah, that one. There was also another one with Roy Thomas, classic
Yeah.
right there. That one was
And
good. Of all the stuff that Marvel has come out with Conan,
hmm.
that one was my favorite.
Yeah, you know what? I actually bought it and didn't read it. I flipped through it. I've got actually a I've got a pretty
Blasphemy.
crazy stack of comics. Yeah, I know. I tend to buy Alien, Terminator, Conan comics,
Mhm.
and I've got a bunch that I've accumulated that I've not, you know, dived into yet.
Yeah. Well, I just finished the edit and upload. It's currently on right as I'm speaking right now. It's currently out for my patrons on Earn Early Access. I still have to send the link. I haven't had time, but I just did my review of the Glénat fourth album for Glénat, the Frost Giant's daughter here.
Oh yeah, and you can read it because it's in
C'est
French.
en français en effet. Et je suis parfaitement
Yeah,
capable de
yeah.
comprendre ce que ça dit. I won't
Je
show
ne
what's
comprends
inside
pas.
right. I won't show the innards right now because that I had to blur out so much nudity in that one. Every
Yeah,
time
yeah.
Atali's on the page, not only topless, but her diaphanous, loose-fitting silken veil is well, it's loose-fitting and diaphanous, so you can see her right through there to see whether
Yeah,
the
yeah.
carpet matches the drapes. You know,
Yeah, the
spoiler warning, they do.
yeah, well,
Leave it
the
to the
I really
French.
I like, yeah, I know. I work with the French at Monolith, so
Yes, that is
I
true. Not only do you work in the audio of Sword and Sorcery, you are also in the game setting. You work for Monolith. You've worked on the Batman board game and more importantly on the Conan board game.
yeah, I did most of what I did for Batman was like character bios, scenario intros, and then I helped sort of sell it.
Mhm.
Conan, I've been far more creatively involved.
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm probably suited for that.
Yeah, I would say so, probably.
Yeah, interesting. I started technically with Modiphius for that because I wrote the Conan, most of the Conan source book for Modiphius, which is like a hybrid book that gives you RPG content and board game content and the
Mhm.
ability to kind of mesh them thematically.
Yeah,
And so I after completing that book, then I started working for Monolith, and then Conan the Conqueror, which is the next expansion, is shipping like now. Everything is at least on
nice.
the ocean, and I'm super psyched to get that in people's hands and
Nice.
my
What
own.
did you work on for that one?
Uh, I was kind of the I don't know what you call it. Essentially, Fred Henry handed me the keys to the kingdom and said, after Beyond the Monolith failed to fund on Kickstarter, he kind of put out a letter saying, we're going to redirect things. I'm going to let Matt John, come up with the creative bit on this. And I did with the help of Dan and Ken, who are some of the designers. And so I kind of had a bird's eye view of the project, had kind of final say on most things, and wrote many of the scenarios. And
Nice.
yeah, I did
So you're the one
these.
I can blame for those time limits on these goddamn scenarios.
Yeah, the time limits have to be. If you don't have them, that game wouldn't work the same way. But
Those who haven't
yeah,
played the game, basically each scenario has a certain number of turns it has to be completed in before the overlord, the game master, wins instead of the players. In general, it varies
yeah,
depending on scenario to scenario.
yeah.
But typically, I've played quite a bit of the Conan board game at my time. A friend of mine, got the whole thing on Kickstarter. I mean, the
Mm,
whole thing.
yeah,
So, and systematically, we would have to like laser focus on the objectives. We couldn't dilly dally, go look at the chests or
yeah,
see if we could find items and stuff like that. We had to just either laser focus, be super efficient on stuff, or we'd lose every single time. It was just like,
yeah. It's a game where if the overlord is good, you've got to be careful. And it really does depend on the scenarios,
mhm.
and it's a really tricky game to design for because you want to have it so that there's not just one path to victory, right? There's not just one viable strategy that the
Right.
hero or overlord could do.
Because you can easily swap out heroes. So the abilities that the heroes have can't necessarily be counted on.
Right. Well, technically you shouldn't swap out heroes unless, but that's
Whoever,
another thing. So
yeah.
with you'll see with Conan the Conqueror, we did a lot of little tweaks that allowed for those sorts of things. So
Mhm.
we have essentially in the regular mode, the versus like the competitive mode, You typically have different choices for heroes. You might have different choices for equipment. So we baked some of that in, but the balance is so delicate that you put a certain hero in there who has a skill that they shouldn't. It's going to be ruinous.
Or is just more powerful than others.
Yeah, exactly. So tricky in that way. But then when I designed the solo co-op mode, there was a lot more leeway there in terms of balance, whereas you don't have another opponent. So things don't have to be fair for two human beings. You can just have a super challenging scenario or one that's slightly lighter and more forgiving.
Yeah.
And so you'll get a bit of a mix of those in there. And you can choose your heroes and accumulate equipment and get XP in a sense.
Yeah, that was something I liked. There was a campaign that came out to the final, and I forget the name. The enemy at the end was a big fight against Central Kell.
Yeah, that was, I think it was the Devil in Iron, it was called, wasn't it? Or
I think it had a different name.
It might have. I should probably know that, but at this point.
Well, I played through the whole thing. You helped design it, so yeah, we probably both.
That one I didn't even work on that one. I did. Okay.
It came in a hardcover book. Yeah. The
next one we have coming out will be in a hardcover. These Tome of Skelos, and it'll have all of the paper scenario rules content for the Conan the Conqueror.
Nice. That's going to be handy. Yeah. I should probably see whether my friend has got his on order already.
Yeah. For us, I think in Canada, we're going to get it a little sooner.
Oh, that's
US shipping is, it's rare too.
Well, it makes sense because, France, Canada, we've got that extra, Quebecois connection right there. Whereas, France and the United States.
I wish it was favoritism, but it's just down to where those ships can get.
Yeah. Although this brings to mind something. The treatment that Sword and Sorcery has had in also the American 1930s, 1950s pulp kind of, literature has been very different on this side of the Atlantic compared to just in France. I mean, do I still have it nearby? Well, somewhere I've got the French edition of Barbarians of Lemuria. You're probably familiar with that RPG.
Yeah.
You look at the standard, made in USA version, and it's good. It's all the rules, the artwork and stuff like that. You look at the French version, they got Emmanuel Roudier to do all the artwork, and it looks straight out of Savage Sword of Conan. It is not only is it great, but it is full on Sword and Sorcery. This is nothing PG-13 about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've noticed that. And certain ways, like Monolith got some heat for that, for a rule book cover they did with Conan, with a nude lady on it, and people had their thoughts on. I think it was more
like a direct reference to a Frazetta cover where
it was
on an altar with a woman on it.
Yeah, exactly. It was playing with those sort of tropes and images. And I would say definitely in France, it's a different approach. It's less puritanical. I don't even want to say puritanical is kind of the word ahead of my tongue. And I don't know, Canada, we tend to follow suit with America anyways, with what's going on. But
Canada, yes. Quebec, we're a different kind of Canadian.
That is true.
Yeah. Well, it comes from its history, basically. But, there's a lot of that kind of European approach to this kind of stuff here in this province compared to other places. So I guess, because I can get these Conan the Cimmerian comics from I can get them at any kind of place they sell comics.
Yeah, I actually bought one of those books.
Nudity and violence up the wazoo here.
Yeah, they're less concerned with it. Basically, children seeing nudity.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like it's the old classic. You go to the movie theater, you see the posters with guns pointed right at your face when you walk by, and that's okay. But
too much, extreme cleavage, and all of a sudden, our minds are going to melt in our heads.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't know. In some ways, I feel like Sword and Sorcery should remain Sword and Sorcery, and certain aspects of it should endure.
Yeah.
At the same time, the doors should be open to provide other depictions, because you don't want it to stagnate and just be the old. Anything that just stays the old same way it was dies. It just does.
Yeah.
Right. It's when you read a regular fantasy book, it doesn't sound like Tolkien anymore. It sounds like George Martin or whatever. For good or for ill, things
Largely,
change, more things are dropped into the pot.
yeah.
You know,
That is something that one of the reasons I feel like I've regressed back to older fantasy books to a large extent. Like right recently, I've been rereading a lot of Abraham Merritt and stuff like that, Dwellers in the Mirage and stuff like that. Like I've got a copy of Dwellers in the Mirage back over there with that's in French, and it's got a Boris Vallejo cover on it that I cannot show on YouTube without severe censorship, because right there on the cover, it's a topless lady, a very particularly attractive topless lady, carrying a spiked ball on a chain and with a lizard monster at her feet, and that's just like, yeah, that was fun.
If I haven't seen that painting, I've definitely seen that painting, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen aspects of it for sure.
Yeah. And of course, the English version is not that. It's a blonde guy fighting a giant squid. Can't be helped. That is an interesting book. It's got like, if you're the kind of person who has fantasies about armies of Viking warrior women who fight topless, I mean, yeah, that story's right for you.
Yeah. And that's kind of the that's the part with Sword and Sorcery art where it's an interesting dichotomy, because the covers don't tend to match precisely what's in the pages, right? Like if you look at any Conan cover, he's shirtless and often in the snow. And, you know, Conan is, when he's in hot environments, he's in stories where he's wearing a loincloth or what have you.
Yeah, or if he's just escaped from some kind of horrible situation where he has to ditch all his stuff.
Exactly. But often he is wearing armor appropriate to the situation.
He wears a pirate outfit at one point.
Yeah, like straight up like Pirates of the Caribbean pirate outfit. And, you know, it's, in some ways, I'd like to see that the art isn't always doing the Vallejo, Frazetta sort of aesthetic, as much as I love it.
Yeah, well, it's an aesthetic that very much, well, it doesn't necessarily represent the narrative. It represents the concepts.
Yeah, and the feel, right? And the sort of the idea of like a strong sword arm will serve you well. Yeah. You know, but that too, and there's a lot of damseling happening, and that's not in all those stories, especially even in Howard. He has pretty badass women.
Oh, yeah, badass women indeed. Yeah. I mean, you've got Belit, who's more like a strategist tactician rather than a full-on warrior in the Black Coast, but she's, you know, pretty damn strong in her own right. She's worshipped as a goddess by her crew practically. Well, you've got Valeria and Red Nails, obviously, who's, you know, literally the template for the Valeria in the 1982 movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And who's the one in People the Black Circle's pretty hard edged too.
The Devi Yasmina, yeah.
Yeah,
so, that's another thing. Like, even his damsels in distress are strong in their own way. I mean, the Devi Yasmina,
in a lot of cases,
is you know, a political animal of the first degree, and as her brother is being, you know, his soul's being torn out of him through black magic, she stabs him in the chest with a dagger to save him, and then swears revenge on the sorcerers who did it. I mean, that is pretty hardcore right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and, you know,
I'm okay. I'll even speak in defense of Natalie from Zuthal of the Dusk.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's always described as like, oh, Conan, what shall we do? And she does that, but she's a completely normal person stuck in an absolutely extraordinary and completely horrifying situation. Of course she's going to be like that. She's like she's us. She's like, you know, you were.
Yeah, that would be me. I would be falling down dead in the desert before we found that place.
Yeah. And even at the end, she's the one who shows them a great moral strength. She's the one who's like, no, I'm not going to kill this person sleeping. I'm just going to take the elixir and move on and save Conan's life.
Yeah. And in a sense, she might even be like a sort of prototype for Valeria, in that Zuthal of the Dusk
is a prototype for Red Nails.
Exactly. So, you know, and Howard did a lot of that sort of cannibalizing of his ideas. I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying that you take a very similar story and then you pop a warrior woman in there, and, you know, so
well, you know, it just goes to recurring elements do a genre make in that regard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially if you're putting all your stuff in the same world, for instance, like you know, Howard did for the Hyborian Age. I mean, recurring elements at that point just become Easter eggs rather than simply, you know, cannibalizing your story for spare parts.
Yeah, exactly. And we all go crazy spotting things in various stories, and the fact that, like, you know, we got Cthulhu is mentioned in I think it's the first draft of Phoenix on the Sword, maybe. Anyways, we got all those crossover elements, which are tons of fun.
Yeah. I think they
Yeah.
actually included Cthulhu in, especially the Dark Horse comic book
Oh yeah.
adaptations. Yeah, they
Yeah.
include
Yeah.
a lot of the references like that.
Yeah. And some of like the Bran McMorn Worms of the Earth mentions
Mm,
Dagon, I think.
yeah,
A few other elements too.
yeah. And there's the reference in other non-Conan, non-fantasy stories like what call it, the Black Stone, I think it's called by Howard. That
Yeah.
one also kind of references the same entities in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely had that pen pal crossover appeal.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Him, Howard and Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and their whole circle. I mean, the whole interpenetrability of their work really, helped enhance all of it by giving you that sense of like, is any of this real? They all seem to be basing off the same stuff, really.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it makes it feel more of a more of a history, more of a
Mhm.
found strange documents kind of thing.
Yeah,
Maybe they're
exactly.
real.
I
Yeah.
mean, that is where, Sword and Sorcery came from. It was history with a fantastical element and, the adventure and the action and stuff like that.
Yeah. And in some ways that's part of what sets it apart from other fantasy. It's less fantastical. I mean, it gets super weird at times,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's not, it doesn't have hard and fast rules for a lot of things. And of course, everything we say right now is bent or broken by particular stories, but
Well,
whatever. The
typically when you do that, the thing that's being bent or broken is isolated in amid a sea of things that remain somewhat, consistent with the rest. I
Mhm.
mean, Moorcock's Elric, for instance, is still, in a sense, it is an imagined prehistory, since the Young Kingdoms is like a reality reboot, previous to a reality reboot version of our world in that regard.
Mhm.
As we learned from Stormbringer, slight spoilers. And really, when you think about it, this is something I go back to a lot. The heroic fantasy genre is like a spectrum. On one hand, you have pure Howardian sword and sorcery. On the other hand, you have like Tolkienian high epic, high fantasy, and everything else is like somewhere in between those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add in sort of like more realistic grimdark stuff that sort of Glenn Cook would have kind of started with the Black Company.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, is a little more popular now with other authors like Joe Abercrombie. And so I think all of that stuff gets mixed into the pot, and it's fun now because like when I write, I don't set out to write a sword and sorcery tale. It's just kind of like by osmosis, it gets into my work. It doesn't really sound particularly sword and sorcery like, other than the odd use of like eldritch or something. But I think what's great is that we have all of these things that have come before are now a grab bag for anyone who wants to write this kind of fiction.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun. And I'm not someone I don't really get bogged down by the sort of anxiety of influence, right? Thinking like, oh, well, who am I writing this for? And also, is this too much like this? Or I don't care, because there's nothing to lose, right?
Yeah. And then you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, it's fun. And, I've had reasonable success in small publishers, and I'm going to keep rocking and rolling.
Oh, there you go. I mean, that's all the best we can all ask for ourselves, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
Some of those smaller publishers have been doing very well lately. I mean, you look at something like DMR books; they're going from success to success. You have, other smaller fanzines that are attracting wider audiences. There's I think it's been noted that I think Brian Murphy noted this, the author of Flame and Crimson, that we're in the middle of a minor resurgence of the sword and sorcery genre.
Yeah. If we, whether we are, whether we aren't, it seems like we are, and there are enough small presses that are staying alive, and enough people are reading them. So whether it's going to blow up and become big with the big publishers, I'm dubious of that happening.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to, right? It needs to have a healthy community around it, and it needs to welcome in new people. You got to get new blood in there, or it's just going to crust or stagnate. So
I think the main point of contention with that would be, you want new blood, but you want new blood that actually likes the thing that you're creating, the thing that you're trying to spread, as opposed to new blood says, yeah, nice thing you got here. let's change this, let's change this, let's change
Yeah, yeah.
this. You want to keep enough of what came before so that's actually recognizable as that thing, because
Mhm.
otherwise, what was the point of trying to spread it?
Yeah, and I think that kind of depends on how you're selling it, right? If
Mhm.
you came in and you're like, this is an unabashed sword and sorcery tale, and then you changed tons of tropes and turned it all on its head,
Yeah.
then yeah, you're gonna get some pushback for that for sure. But that's why, like, I kind of run in a sword and sorcery circle, um, and a lot of what I write is definitely rooted in that. But at first blush, you might not really see that when you read it.
Mhm.
And I think that's okay. I think that's the healthy amount, right? You have a respect for the thing. You toss your ideas in the ring and see how they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trick is to not, you don't want to court too many outright expectations beforehand to let it, ride, ride or die on its own merits in that regard.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think some people are deliberately avoiding the sword and sorcery label. Call it something else. Make it a Trojan horse situation where you
Mm.
present it as one thing and sneak a sword and sorcery tale in there. Because that's the other thing. I was talking about this. I don't even know. I talk so much with many people that I forget which conversations are with whom. Um, but the idea that you, yeah, you don't have to worry about how you're packaging it or selling it so much if you're enjoying what you are doing. And if you're going to Trojan horse somebody with sword and sorcery, they're probably not going to be disappointed because sword and sorcery is often wicked. It's like it boils down storytelling into a
It's elemental in its own way.
yeah, and it has an economy too, where it's like
Yeah.
let's get in and get out and have
Yeah.
a
I think that really stems from its origins in many ways. You look at,
Mhm.
well, where it came from, pulp, that pulp commercial fantasy right there. You had like a limited amount of space you could tell your story in,
Yeah,
and you were, trying to, on the one hand, have an economy of words, but still manage to put in enough that you get paid decently enough
yeah.
and have things be good enough so that people keep coming back for more.
Well, and it raises a question too, like with sword and sorcery. I think it so lends itself to short fiction,
Mhm.
and something like The Hour of the Dragon is like a perfect adventure novel, right?
Yeah.
And but I think would Hour of the Dragon be any better if it was longer? And I'm
No.
like, not really. So that to me is sort of the perfect sword and sorcery novel that you could do. I'm not saying you couldn't make a 500-page one, but I'm saying is the market wants those big door stoppers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know necessarily that sword and sorcery is best fitted to that.
Yeah. Well, does the
So,
market want that, or do the publishers want that?
well, I don't know.
Mm.
I think in a lot of ways their big recurring sales come from people who devour books, right?
Yeah.
So that I can't really speak to. I don't know, but I guess what I'm saying is, let's say sword and sorcery has a tiny renaissance and it's a very healthy community, and this healthy community is blasting out short stories and novellas. Not everyone's doing that,
Yeah.
and maybe that'll attract people who want more fleet fiction. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Or
don't
who
know.
want to be able to have more of a variety in terms of what they're reading on any given week or something like that.
Yeah, and what Whetstone is doing, which is just a free publication that you can read, anyone for free online. It's
Yeah.
just they have a limit. I think it's 2,500 words for their submissions, and as a writer, that was very challenging. I was like, oh my god, 250 word or 2,500 is very short. Anyways, I submitted something and it'll be in the next issue. But I think that they're really onto something with the idea of like a story you could read on your lunch break, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's definitely I don't know if there's a desire for that, but there's a freaking place for it for sure.
Oh, definitely. Like, most of the little paperbacks I've got behind here, they fit in my back pocket. I could just,
Yeah.
bring these to work and without any trouble. Like,
Mhm.
I recently went to a book swap, but well, not book swap. A library was getting rid of some old stuff, and I picked up a bunch of the old French Bob Moran paperbacks along with this thing. Unfortunately, Conan the Savage.
Oh, is
by
that
Leonard Carpenter.
yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
That not the best of Ken Kelly's covers either.
Yeah, it's not the best. I never want to hear Conan say the words, "Now we make happy happy."
What? Is
Yeah,
that really in there?
yeah, something like that. Basically, he gets involved with some primitive tribe. He kind of has a thing for one of the chicks, and then it's kind of I put
So,
it down.
I've heard a lot of people like when Marvel got the license, they're like, they're gonna ruin Conan. Oh, they're gonna ruin it. And I'm like, dude, those like early 90s Conan novels like did their damn best.
They did
And
their
some of them,
best. Yeah.
there are gems in there. There
Oh yeah.
definitely are. But yeah, man, like
Yeah.
Conan's gonna stand up to some crappy releases and he'll be just fine.
Yeah. I mean, I picked up some of the Red Sonja novels, and those are decent enough reads
The
too.
old ones like David C. Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've not read them, but I've got them on the shelf. I read David C. Smith's one of his Bran McMorn novels for The Witch of the Mists.
Ooh.
It was
How was
actually pretty
that?
fun. It was fun. Yeah, it's not. It's quick read.
Yeah, David C.
Um,
Smith's a good fit for the sword and sorcery genre.
yeah, and I mean those novels really do kind of feel like the Hour of the Dragon. I don't know what I want to call it. Economy, I guess. It's compact. It's adventure story. It moves,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that's something I can't stress enough. Now, maybe this is a difference between short fiction and novels. Maybe that's really what I'm talking about here. Or maybe it's that in the realm of fantasy and fantasy adjacent topics or genres, that maybe it's that short stories are kind of a good thing and we should think more in terms of when you're writing anything, think in terms of a short story, like get to the friggin' point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I really do like talking heads in books. So this is interesting. I like dialogue heavy books and I like Sword and Sorcery, which doesn't seem to match. But I just want things to move. That's
You don't
all.
want things to like stagnate or meander too much into a single point
Yeah.
when they
And it's
shouldn't.
like I'm okay with a chapter that's all talking heads and character building. I'm fine with that. What I'm
Mhm.
not cool with is info dumps and immense world building about your setting that is it's really rare to have a setting that's much cooler than the other one, than any other set. I have certain things I want, certain things I don't. But if you're coming at me with, oh man, I got this wicked world concept, I'm like, I don't care. I've seen it all, dude. I've seen and read it all. I don't care about your world. What are your characters? What are they doing? You know,
What's the
what
plot?
yeah, or what's the
Yeah.
plot, or what are
What
the
is your
monsters?
world
What's the
building in
flavor?
service of?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've said this times before, but I'm really glad that when I decided I'm going to try and write somewhat more seriously, that I started with short fiction because
Mm.
I knew in my mind a novel was an immense task,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm still not that up for it because I still feel like I'm learning new things with all the short fiction I'm writing, and I don't want to make a giant mistake in a novel that's unsellable or like I just. And I think the storytelling lessons you learn in short fiction will serve you with every little piece. You'll learn almost all of the lessons I think that you need to know about writing by writing short stories,
Yeah.
except for novel structure, basically.
And
Maybe
even
that's
then,
naive. I might be wrong. I don't know.
yeah, well, even then, the structure of a short story, the getting to the point, rising action, climax, resolution kind of thing,
Yeah.
you can apply that to each chapter in a book. You have each chapter be that kind of structure where something has to keep things happening, essentially, even if
Yeah.
those things are just, like a revelation from a talking head scene.
Mm-hmm.
And, if even if your book is structured in, different sections, have the same thing happen, like going slightly up, 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 and then reach a climax point, back down, and then build up again like that.
Yeah. And that's actually like I've looked at a bunch of templates for novels, right? Like how they suggest you structure a thing. And there's a bunch of almost paint by numbers novel formats out
Of
there.
course.
And I wouldn't be ashamed to use one and maybe tweak as we go. I'm just having a lot more fun learning lessons writing short fiction because
Yeah.
I don't know, if you fall down and you screw something up, it's just you throw away 3,000 words or something.
Yeah, you're
Not a
not
big deal.
throwing
I
out
got
a brick through your window and have to replace that too.
yeah, exactly. So someday I'll probably attempt a novel, but not this day.
Not this day, but soon.
Yeah,
One day.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, there are some people who are very much intent on turning what is an art into a science. All these templates and the particular rules of everything like that. I mean, and I think this is a plague that a particular disease that plagues the nerddom quite a bit in that regard. You look at how many people, the first thing that when you tell them I'm creating a, like a setting for something or something, oh yeah, what's the magic system?
Yeah,
System right there.
I I understand why people like magic systems, I think, but I don't. And I don't care.
Yeah.
I think you have to have some kind of internal consistency, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's like you can add new things in it as characters discover new things, right? Like, do you have characters in your world who know every goddamn thing about every goddamn thing?
No.
You probably don't. And if you do, that character sucks.
Yeah.
Who wants that character?
Yeah. And there's no reason why you can't have like one person who does things their particular way and runs into another person who does things completely differently, so long as they're not narratively what's the word I'm looking for? Narratively contradictory, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I have seen magic systems that I think are cool. And I'm not against someone having one. I just you don't get many bonus points for me at all for having one.
Yeah.
And
Plus,
and maybe I'm specific and I'm not really the average reader, perhaps. I don't know.
Maybe you're just a bit more sophisticated.
if you say it
with Tigra here on
excuse me.
chest there.
You see that? Yeah, go to Frazetta Girls and shop for
this is what sophistication looks like, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I should have worn my Motorhead shirt too.
Yeah. Motorhead.
Man. Oh, I will say this: there's a pretty damn good sword and sorcery inspired power metal out there. That's for damn sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just
I don't think you
a lot
could
of them coming out of Canada too.
Yeah. You can't really have power metal without sword and sorcery.
No, it's one of its direct descendants, musically speaking.
Yeah. Oh man, I really miss 3 Inches of Blood.
Oh.
I wouldn't say they were, they're not pure power metal or anything, but they've got a bit of that in there. And
Destroy the Orcs, man.
Some Doom. Yeah, like I love that band. I saw them live many times and always just rocked it out in the mosh pit. Like it was a good time.
Yeah. Oh man, there's some really good stuff out there. There's Eternal what's the name?
Eternal Champion.
Eternal Champion. I've been listening to a lot. They have some really good tracks on that. Cauldron Born.
Yeah.
One of the creators for that. Oh, like what a lot of the guys, I mentioned DMR Books a little bit back, Dave Ridson's outfit, but a lot of the authors from that are in fact metal, metal people. You have Byron Roberts from Balshagoth, who does stuff
what was it? They did I feel like one of their first anthologies was
Swords of Steel.
Swords of Steel, and it was from sort of metal musicians writing short fiction.
Yeah,
which is a wicked concept. I mean,
that's one of the things I like a lot about, for instance, Balshagoth. It's got this, aside from the fact that it sounds badass, it's like, spoken word, deep, dark, Orson Wellesian spoken word, along with I'm screaming at the top of my lungs about Atlantis. It's just, it's just awesome. They have album titles that are 16 words long, at least 20 words. I think I'm not sure if that one of their albums has a record or something for longest title, but and then you would just look, the whole thing is like this massive multi-millennia world building exercise that the guy's done in his spare time, just creates 6 albums of metal mellifluous magicalness.
I used to be in bands from time to time, and now I got to a point where I realized I could never sing metal, and then I gave up. I didn't try to sing metal. I just was like, metal is the ultimate expression in music, so why am I even bothering doing something less? This is garbage. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
I say that, but I attend Ghost concerts, so I'm sure the true metal warriors out there would not approve.
I like Perturbator and Carpenter Brute. So
yeah. Well, listen, it's nice if you can go to a metal show that your wife wants to attend to.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of those genres that where in literary circles, the sword sorcerer genre is having a bit of a resurgence. In metal, it never really went away. There's always been that
That's right.
line, that where it's had. So there's certain genres that, while not being directly to it, they have inspired. Comic books. There's always been a sort of direct line between the original 1930s pulp straight to
Oh yeah,
modern comics.
Yeah.
In gaming especially.
Yeah, and and it's funny. You look at something like Diablo 2, and it had such a better look, with the Braum art, and it was just all darker. And then Diablo 3, I don't know if it put anime in there or what it did, but it just it was too clean.
Case in point, Les Edwards' Hero Quest cover.
Yeah.
Modern Hero Quest cover.
Yeah. By whom? I don't know.
Just
I know.
I don't mind that the elf is a hot chick now. I will never mind. I am an Age of Barbarians fan.
Oh, yeah.
I do not mind hot chicks kicking ass in my Sword and Sorcery.
Yeah.
However, don't make him look like weeb crap.
Yeah. Is weeb an anime thing?
It's weeb is basically a negatively stereotyped anime fan as opposed to
it's a pejorative for an anime fan.
Let me just make one thing clear. There is good weeb. There's also weeb crap.
Yeah.
One should not make the mistake of confusing them.
I think I brought it up recently. It's the squee that I can't do. Oof. When someone squeeze, I just can't. Even if I read it, I hate it. And it's I don't hate the person who says it's nothing like that. It's just, certain things are just repellent to you.
I know, right?
And I'm trying to love you as a human being, and then you say that, and I go, oh. But I'm old and cranky, so I guess that's it.
Also, we're Canadian, so we have to be polite about that.
That's right. I have to apologize at how angry I am that you said that.
Yes. I'm sorry I have to put your head on a spike.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're going to be lawn ornaments in my castle now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for Halloween, I did a nice little skull pile with the sword through it.
Sick.
Indeed, it was quite ill.
Going back to Beastie Boys.
Actually, I was going back to ye olden times, but I see. Speaking of pet peeves, if there's one thing that kind of always bugs me a little bit whenever I'm reading an actual, advertised as sword and sorcery tale, it's when I hear modern swearing.
Yeah. So I've had this conversation a lot with people. Yes, I agree in the traditional sort of, if you're trying to root it in a pseudo history and you're trying to stay close to even our history with anachronisms, then I think it doesn't belong. But I decided early on, I'm going to use it. And the reason I want to use it is kind of because of Battlestar Galactica. When I hear them say frack, I cringe a bit. And I love that redo series was awesome. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
But I'm never going to do that. And there's a lot of words that here's the thing. If you're trying to do historic, then I would say a lot of your voice and prose needs to be rooted in that, right?
Yeah.
So I decided when I write, it's going to be modern-ish. It's not going to be like, yo, bro, what's up? Nothing like that. But I'll pop in some F-bombs and a few other things that just feel more, I don't know, like people talking. And the reason my justification is really that in these fantasy worlds, no one will be speaking English anyways.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is get a voice and a vibe that sort of emulates the feel that we would have speaking to one another. And so if you use made up words, then you get in Battlestar Galactica territory. If you don't use any of them, to me, it feels somewhat like it doesn't have enough bite.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Deadwood situation.
Right. I love the Deadwood situation. I think it's great.
Yeah. Now, for those who don't know, originally back in ye olden Western days, so calling someone a damn bastard would have been one of the worst things you could call someone.
Yeah.
These days, that has no power at all. So they actually use, some actual swearing.
Yeah.
And then just relied on the likes of Ian McShane to make it just sound beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. He was like on A Christmas Story Ralphie talks about how his dad, he uses some term to describe his dad as being like basically a poet with swear words. That's Ian McShane in
That was
Deadwood.
glorious.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And going back to Spartacus, they did some wonderful things on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Spartacus is very jarring when you first hear it. And at first you're like, I know that turned off a lot of people because it's like, it does feel weird at first, right? It feels like, oh, they're just really potty mouth and they all sound kind of modern. But really, that's what these dudes would be saying. They're going to be saying things that are, low brow. And to make that come across to a modern audience, you're either going to say frack or you're going to say the other word. And I go with
word, as we all know, is fuck.
Yeah, you can say it. I can't. I keep my I keep my contributions PG.
All swear words are my own and do not reflect upon the guests.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, one thing there are a couple of things I did like about the way they did dialogue as Stephen Knight and his writers did on Spartacus. One, they gave John Hannah the most perfect lines of all time. Even back when I was in the army, I was like, okay, I'm impressed.
Is that what that guy's name is?
John Hannah?
Yeah.
Yeah. He played.
He was like in the Mummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the Mummy and Mummy 2 and other things.
Yeah. Lucy Lawless is in there, man. That was a great show.
Lucy Lawless in all her glory.
Yeah.
And she had a hell of a range on that show too.
Yeah, she did. She was very villainous but sympathetic, and I don't know. Yeah, she was interesting.
Yeah, well, everybody was. I mean, you start rooting at one point for Batiatus, John Hannah's character, who is the person who's in charge of the Ludus, the gladiator school where Spartacus is imprisoned. And you think, okay, this guy is a stand-up guy. He's helping our boy there. And then you realize, oh, yeah, I forget. He's a Roman slave owner and he's a complete asshole. And, downright evil at times. And
all the treachery from the top.
Yeah. And then you got other guys who are, helping him out from the bottom there too. And it's just like, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And then
it's a cool show though.
Yeah. And then you get to the end of season 1 and it's just like, kill them all.
Yeah. Yeah. And then sadly, buddy, what's his name? Jesus. Liam something?
Liam McIntyre.
No, he was the replacement.
Yeah. He was the guy that, it was handpicked by the previous actor who died of who contracted cancer, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's such a sad story, man. It really is, and it happened in real time, right?
I know, right? Watched it occur. It's like at the end of season 1, they diagnosed with cancer, so they take some time off, do the prequel season, Gods of the Arena, which was awesome, and important to the further to the story and everything. And then he knows he's not going to make it, so he handpicks his successor, who I think was genuinely good. He was different, but once I, got used to it, he was really, really good.
Yeah, he was decent. And I mean, that was a show that had a really good ensemble.
Oh yeah.
I think, there was like all the supporting characters were cool and like the sort of villains of the season. And yeah, I'm tempted to rewatch that now.
Oh, it's well worth rewatching. Yeah. I noticed a lot of stuff, now that I can look past all the boobs and violence, which, let's face it, is what attracted me to the show in the first place. I'm not going to lie. But, you get into it and you stick with a story. And not only is the story exceptionally well written with, all the historical reference that you expect, but also the way the dialogue is done. This is something I noticed. They actually altered the cadence of the way people talk, the syntax, to make it more match Roman era Latin. So I didn't notice that, but they don't use many adverbs. They, say, instead of saying thank you, they say gratitude. Or stuff like that. Right. Yeah. Yes, or still tongue and allow thought to speak. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
that's a good example of like. So Spartacus is kind of a crazy mishmash in that it does have that, and the, like you're saying with the language, it feels authentic, but they do also. I don't know if the swear words are even modern or. I think so. I think they definitely put in some more modern usages.
Oh yeah, well, there's definitely some F-bombs.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of I sometimes have to wonder, right? Like I was reading Joe Abercrombie, and I was like, does he use the F words? Because I'm desensitized. I hear it all the time in the fiction I'm reading and watching. But yeah, he does. But I don't think George Martin did.
No, I don't think George. Well,
he used some things that were a little more that felt more modern.
I think he
But
dropped the C-bomb a couple of times, but
yeah, which I think, that is a little more historical, usually with a Y on the end of it. But anyways, we're getting into the weeds of swear words here.
yeah.
Yeah. So what does the great Cthulhu want to talk about next?
Well, I would just ask you about what you have next on your particular docket, so to speak. I know you've got some stuff that's going to be published.
Yeah, I've got some Tales from the Magician's Skull.
Oh yeah, that's something that's garnering some seriously good reviews.
Yeah, that's I think it's definitely the top of the stack in terms of what is the best sword and sorcery publications going on right now.
Yeah,
because it's expressly devoted to sword and sorcery, but it's got a lot of great stories. But the format itself too is so great. Wicked covers.
Yeah.
And these things sound kind of stupid, they sound like they don't matter, but they do with something like this. If you want to write a love letter to the genre with what you're publishing, the idea of having cool paper stock, right? Like, you can just feel the difference with that.
I know, right?
Yeah. And like the black and white old school role playing sort of internal illustrations. Every story gets some kind of a picture that goes with it.
It's a pulp magazine, just like they had originally.
Exactly.
Those also had the great covers, the
and it's
black and white illustrations for every story.
Yeah, it's a big book. It's a big magazine format. RPG stats that go with the monsters and the stories. Like, how cool is that? Yeah. So I can't recommend enough to go get that. So yes, I sold a story to them for one of their upcoming issues. I'm not sure which one. And honestly, I had no idea I would get into that. I wasn't even going to write one because it's like the competition in this would be ridiculous. And it was. I got like over 500 plus submissions or something. But my little story made the cut, and it's something. Now that's one where I wrote unabashed sword and sorcery.
Nice.
I went in knowing what I was writing. And Howard Andrew Jones, the editor, he has a really good in the submission guidelines. Look up the Tales from the Magician's Skull if you want to a little guide on how to write a great, fast-moving sword and sorcery tale. The submission guidelines for Tales from the Magician's Skull are worth a read. And so that was successful. Got in there. And it is still on Kickstarter now. I don't know when this show will come out, but if they're probably a late pledge or something anyways after the point, but
I think definitely as of this video, there's probably still, as we're recording this,
there's like 5 or 6 days, I think.
5 or 6 days. Yeah.
So that's one thing. I've done some work on the Terminator role-playing game, which will be, I think, out to Kickstarter backers, hopefully mid next year. That's by Nightfall Games.
Okay.
Yeah, I was super psyched to get on board that because I friggin' love the Terminator. I always have.
Yeah. Well, the first two.
Yes. I actually like the most recent as well, but everything before that I did not like. Yeah. 1 and 2, and then what is it? 12?
There's a video game that was made very recently.
I've been playing it.
Resistance. Terminator Resistance. That one is really, really good.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not like technically good, but it really captures it. It captures the feel.
Yeah, it feels like what would happen if you took like a Metro Exodus and put the Terminator license on that. It's got that, separate instances of different areas, not full open world like Fallout, or for instance, but it's got that just enough of that exploring and options and how to approach things. And
yeah, I kind of dig that. I don't actually, as much as I think I need open world without zones, and I don't really. I don't feel like the game's better because I don't get a load screen. Yeah, I don't know. I could go back and forth, but what else are we doing?
Things that works or doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. I think Rogues in the House. We're going to release a volume of fiction with some pretty cool contributors.
Nice. You guys had
I
already
can't.
released something though.
Yeah, we did it.
Right?
We did a volume one, which was like a very small sampler. It was 2 stories, some poetry, and some art. And it's budget priced. It's on Amazon if you want to check it out. We would always appreciate the support. This thing we're doing will be kind of a fundraiser for the show in the sense that, we'll buy ads and equipment or whatever to sort of put in the communal coffers for the show.
Yeah.
But we got some good folks contributing. We'll talk more about that later. So look for that in the future, but that's something I'm excited about.
Cool. And that's going to be on the Rogues in the House podcast. The link will be in the description below.
We will advertise that ad nauseum. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Well, I remember you advertising a bit of me. You shared one of the videos I made. That's kind of like how we got in touch. So
yeah, no, I'm and that's what I'm saying when I kind of want people to get into the same roof in the Rogues house. Not that it's our house. It's just that we got to support one another and share each other's things and make it a community, because nothing's going to work in a vacuum, right? Yeah. So the more you spread these things out, you get potential interest from people. I don't know. Spread the love, as they say.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, beyond that, I don't know if you want to check us out. We are on pretty much all the podcast platforms. I have an Instagram page that I run at Rogues in the House. Share a lot of cool art. Hawk the shows when they come up, which those posts get like no likes. People hate it on Instagram when you advertise to them. You put any text on a picture, they are like, what? Gross. This is Instagram. We're looking at pictures. Yeah.
Because I'm doomed, because I do that with pretty much every post I make. So
yeah, it's tough out there. It's tough, man.
Marketing doesn't make sense. Marketing is an older science created by strange cosmic beings.
Yeah, I think really, I think it's one of those, like, you can kind of figure it out on your own, but maybe it is something that like is worthwhile at an educational institute to like get the ins and outs, because I think there's a lot to it.
Yeah, that and figuring out how to do your taxes.
Yeah, I don't do that. I pay someone so I don't get in trouble. I got a side business, right? I got my Pen and Sword Productions. Is like, I can't, I've got to make sure I let a tax person handle that, because, Matt don't do math.
Yeah, well, those are those kinds of things. I suppose we all have our little side gigs and main gigs, and sometimes you just have to, let somebody else take care of certain things.
Yeah. Oh, I'm more than happy to. If someone, I actually, I love this story. It's like, I wanted to put hardwood flooring upstairs, right? And my wife and I were talking. I was like, wow, I could look at some YouTube videos, and I was like, no. So I took Terminator money and so I spent my time writing this stuff, and then I paid for the floor,
Yeah.
The installation.
We had a similar situation here. We were going to install a new fan in our upstairs bathroom. And okay, we finally get the contractor in, we get the fan, everything's ready to go. And turns out the air recirculation system in the house, this has been built in the 80s, and whoever did the installation of that screwed the job, so that the air was circulating like inside itself, kind of thing. It's hard to explain, but basically it was not, we already had the equivalent of a ventilation system up in the bathroom. It just wasn't working properly. So instead of doing that, we added some extra piping downstairs and here in the basement, rejiggered everything. And now it's just a question of like turning it on max. We haven't had a single whiff of vapor in that bathroom ever since.
Oh,
it's like, okay, well, glad we called you guys anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more than happy to let the pros do their thing, and I'll do the things that I'm somewhat decent at.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And I may say you are quite decent at the things you are decent at, sir.
Well, thank you. As long as people are, I mean, if all you're doing on a show is talking, and then people are willing to listen to it, there's got to be something there, right?
Amen to that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah,
It's my only hope.
yeah. That and like cool t-shirts.
Cool ass t-shirts.
Heck
Although in your
yes.
case, I'm mostly just seeing a microphone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is mostly a microphone there.
You're just gonna have to get a close up on mine here.
Yeah, that's fine. You get the idea. Yeah, you can tell. Cut from the same cloth. Perhaps
Indeed.
literally with this
Perhaps literally.
t-shirt.
We'll have to check the numbers on the tags.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation between me and Matt Jones of Rogues in the House. I would like to thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, it has been my pleasure. You can find him at Rogues in the House podcast. You can find his work in many places throughout the internet on various sword and sorcery zines, as well as the upcoming Tales from the Magician's Skull. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the new Conan board game stuff. And I'm looking forward to be back on this channel with perhaps something else to review or another guest. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again someday.
I'm down.
Well, I am down too. So I've been Bastion, aka 07716. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And I will see you all next time. Adios.